Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to use the meshgrid function. Now it's one of the more confusing functions in MATLAB, but hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a better understanding of how it works and what it does. Before we start using the meshgrid function, let's do a problem that we already know how to do. So here we have x is assigned 1 through 5. So we know that x is a variable or a vector of size 1 by 5, and it contains elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then y is also assigned 1 through 5. So we know that y is also a vector of size 1 by 5, and it contains elements 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if we're told to multiply x by y, we know that we could just do a is assigned x dot multiplication y. Doing this, you will see that we get 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25, because if you look up here, this is just multiplying, or 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, and then 5 times 5. So that was simple enough, but things get complicated when you have, for instance, y going from 1 to 3, so y contains elements 1, 2, and 3 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now it's no longer of size 1 by 5, it's of size 1 by 3. Now, you can't do this because the dimensions of x and y have to be the same in order for you to multiply them together. So this is one of many purposes of the meshgrid functions, is to if you want to do something like this, you have to use the meshgrid function first, and then you can do it. So what is the general format for meshgrid function? So here you have the general format. On the right hand side, meshgrid will accept two vectors. So here I'll call them x and y. And what it will do is it will take these two vectors and make two brand new matrices. So x new is a matrix, and also is y new. Now, how big they are, the size of x new and y new, they're both of the same size. So if this is of size 5 by 4, if x new is of size 5 by 4, so is y new. So their size will always be the same, but their sizes depend on the number of elements in x and the number of elements in y. So for instance, in this case, if you look up here, now that y is of size 1 by 3, we know that there are 3 elements in y, and then there are 5 elements in x. What the meshgrid function will do is it will, so it will create these two matrices, right? So the number of rows in these two matrices depend on the number of elements in y. So it will create one row for each element in y. So since we know there are 3 elements in y, it will create 3 rows. So x new and y new will both have 3 rows. Now the vector in this position right here, the first position, the first thing inside the meshgrid function, will determine the number of columns x new and y new will have. In this case, you see that x has 5 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we know that x new and y new will both have 5 columns. So similarly, if y had, instead of 3 elements, say 4 elements, x new and y new would both have 4 rows. And instead of x having 5 elements, if it had 7 elements, both x new and y new would have 7 columns. So think of it this way: this element right here will determine the number of columns, and this vector right here, or the elements in this vector, will determine the number of rows. So that's all you need to know for these two, the size of these two matrices. Now I'll actually type the code, and then we'll see that what it actually gives you. Besides this, we already know the size, but we want to know what it holds. So I'll call it x new y new is assigned meshgrid and inside the meshgrid function I'll send it x comma y, and if I run this, oops, I'm gonna delete this for now. Now if I run this, you see that you get x new is assigned this 3x5 matrix, and so is y new. So y new is assigned this 3x5 matrix, and you see that in x new there are 5 columns for 5 elements in x. So this entire column has all ones, this entire column has all twos, this entire column has all threes, and so forth for the next 2 columns. Now the y new has 3 rows for each element in y. So for instance, I'm going to assign different numbers to x and y for a minute so you can see better. So I'll say x is assigned 5, 7, 8, and 9, and y is assigned 1, 3, 2, or 1, 3, 5, and 8. I like 8. So you see now that they're of the same size again. I'll just go up to 5, sorry. So now you see that x new, if you look up here, x has these elements 5, 7, 8, and 9. So you go up here and you look at x new. If you look at x here, you look at x new here, and then you see since it has 4 elements, you should expect to see 4 columns containing 5, 7, 8, and 9. And then you look at y new here. You look at y new here, and then you go to y here, and you see that it has the elements 1, 3, and 5. So that's a total of 3 elements. So you should expect to see 3 rows, 1 row containing just ones, 1 row containing just threes, and 1 row containing just fives. So this row only contains ones, this row only contains threes, and this row only contains fives. So that is just something you keep your eye out for, just to see how it works. Now even though x and y are of different size, you see that x new and y new have the same size. So what we did earlier was we tried to multiply them together and we couldn't do it. But now if you do a is assigned x new dot multiplication y new, you will see that you get a brand new matrix that contains all the possible combinations of when you multiply x new and y new. And this is one of many uses of the meshgrid function. It will allow you to create matrices of the same size so you can do operations like multiplication, division, and so forth. So what this does is, well, I already talked about what the dot operator and the dot multiplication does. Would be, we'll take this first element multiplied by the first element of this, of y new, and then it will take this element multiplied by the first element of this, and you will get 7. So 8 times 1, 8, 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, and then we'll do it for all the elements. So I hope I didn't confuse you, because I know this is a confusing function and it's kind of hard to understand, so I'll just do more example problems in the next video to explain it better, and hopefully you will understand it by then. Thank you for watching.